down.
Did you Google these jokes?
Oh yeah, I'm googling
Okay.
more. I made the first couple,
It
but
sounds
now
like you're
I'm
reading
like,
off
hey,
a
we're
list
getting.
here.
I am now.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
Did you know he was a fan of PDA?
No.
During the parade, he was all over his wife.
Wow. That's a rough one. That one's brutal, dude.
Interrupt your regularly scheduled program for a special news bulletin from our partners in Twisted World.
We interrupt your regularly scheduled program for a special news bulletin from Twisted World.
What is up, Twisted World fam? We are back. We love you as always. I'm with my boys, Andy and Cody.
Yo.
What's up?
And we have a special guest, our good friend, DJ. What's up, man?
Hello. Thank you for having me here. I'm a big fan. I never thought that one day I'd be able to grace. We're recording right now live.
We are.
Underground. I don't even know how I got in here. They blindfolded me. There was passwords. There was frisks. I'm not sure whose hands those were, but somehow I ended up in this bunker to record the Twisted World podcast.
Yes. Well, welcome. We're looking forward to this.
The only thing,
little scared, little worried.
Nothing to be scared of.
Hey, we got Mr. DJ, the Unabomber in the house.
Yes, I'm wearing sunglasses and a hoodie.
Yes,
and I will not be showing anyone my eyes for the remainder of this podcast.
Probably for the best.
Yes,
it's probably for the best.
And that was the last episode we had a guest on.
Yes, that was it. It was fun. Good times.
Good times.
Hey fans, we love you guys. As always, when you get a chance, share your favorite episode. A couple people have done it, and just share the favorite one. Shoot us a little feedback on why it was your favorite one. We appreciate you as always. So speaking of one of our episodes, our last episode actually dropped a little early. A little technical issues. Some of you caught it.
No one knew that. It was like your wife.
Well, my wife did. So yeah. So funny thing is, she tells me, and then she tries to rush off to the bedroom or something to listen to it before we could fix it. She's like, "Oh, I got this early. I'm gonna go listen." And I'm like, no, you don't get to listen before.
I pulled over on the side of the road and got that thing off there before she could log onto it.
She listened to 3 seconds and goes, "Babe, it's saying there's an error." I'm like, "And you took care of that."
Dude,
it was great.
It was the worst.
I know. Technical issues. Before we started this episode, we were talking a little bit about ASMR though. I just want to, I'm trying to understand this ASMR thing for all you listeners out there. ASMR is like some sounds and videos of absolutely weird things, but Cody's generation absolutely loves it.
Can you stop?
It's weird, and then the whole it's so satisfying. I'm really trying to figure out what's satisfying about it. Right? I don't understand. It freaks me out.
That's gonna literally be removed when I put the filters on.
Yeah,
it's that low. It's just gonna be
yeah, it won't be anything.
It'll just be silence.
It's so calming.
Well, that's good. They don't want to hear it.
I don't know. There's actually a lot of people who want to hear that.
Millions. It's weird. Absolutely weird. So anyway, so let's get into it. Today's topic is something that happened. It was
definitely happened.
A real life event.
Definitely happened.
There is a lot of crazy theories behind it. And it shook our country and parts of the world when it transpired. And it is the assassination of one of the greatest presidents to ever lead this country, Mr. John Fitzgerald Kennedy, also known as JFK.
AKA my boy John.
Your boy John. Yeah.
Rip.
He's a good dude. Very good dude. Real quick background. Most of you that are listening already, know he was in a motorcade driving down Dallas and in a convertible, and he was shot multiple times. The suspected shooter was Mr. Lee Harvey Oswald. This took place November 22nd, 1963, at the tail end of his first term. And then just to add just one little more piece, and then we will start delving into all the different theories and whatnot. The other piece was Oswald, as he was being transferred to go on to trial, was then shot by a Mr. Jack Ruby, a local nightclub. So it's important that we talk about that because There's a whole lot of theories of who this guy is, who Oswald was, who really did it. And I mean, there's too much for us to even do an elongated episode of it. So we're going to touch on some solid good ones. Again, we brought our friend DJ in here to our, as he put it, our underground.
Yes, the bunker.
And he's going to help enlighten some of these theories. So let's kick it off because there's a whole lot.
I am honored. I'm honored that you had me on. Not that I'm some JFK expert, but I am an enthusiast of this topic.
Yeah.
I do not personally believe any of the wild ones. There's people who believe that this is an alien thing. I'm sure we'll touch on that later.
Yeah, cool. We have to.
My stance on this is very simple. This was a botched investigation, and here's simple. There was a third shooter, and it's almost completely confirmed. I will get into that later. I know there's some skeptics in here. Andy is a big skeptic. I know that of many things. So I'm going to have to show some receipts to prove this to him.
Two shots.
No. There's more than that. Just hold on.
Okay. All right.
I believe there was 3 shooters.
Andy's our realist.
And I believe that more than it was some crazy conspiracy, I think it was a very poorly investigated murder, put simply, and that they wanted to cover it up to stop panic. This is in the height of the Cold War. I mean, it's proven through CIA documents that Lee Harvey Oswald he was a Russian citizen. He had a Russian wife and family, and 2.5 months, or no, less than 2 months before JFK was assassinated, he was in Mexico meeting with he went to the Russian embassy. You guys know this?
Yeah, and the Cuban. He went to both.
Exactly. The Cuban and the Russian embassy. And he met with, here, I have the name right here. If you hear rustling, it's because I have so many papers here. So many things. This is the scribblings.
He brought boxes of notes, ladies and gentlemen.
Boxes of, box. Here it is.
Like you're trying to find a serial killer over here with your.
It is. I did so much.
Just to touch though, real quick, Oswald was an ex-Marine.
He was.
He served in the U.S. military. It's important to know that. And though there is a lot of ties, and as DJ is going to go into some of his stuff that he's found, the first thing that comes out when this guy shoots is, he's a trained killer by the Marines. So that's the surface, right? And then we're going to talk about deeper, darker stuff about maybe
Here's
Mr.
the name.
Oswald.
It's Valery Kostikov. Dude, this guy was in the KGB. He served in their 13th department. The 13th department of the KGB, you know what they specialized in? Anyone? Assassinations and sabotage. So less than 2 months before the assassination of JFK, you find Lee Harvey Oswald in Mexico meeting with the head of the Russian embassy who was in the KGB who specialized in assassination. Now, am I saying that he was a Russian agent to kill JFK? I don't have proof of that, but I do believe that because of all this information, the government did not want this type of stuff to get out because it would cause panic within America. They wanted Lee Harvey Oswald. Hey, he was the killer. We caught him. No more panic. We're done with it. You know, because the more this stuff started coming out, the more it would incite panic.
Yeah. Freak the country out.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally get it.
More than that, right? At the end of the day, a country like ours is built on democracy, and that democracy is at the head, which is the president. If our president gets taken out and we don't fit and get into the process of putting a president in place and kind of restoring that structure, it becomes weak in the eyes of other people, right?
And not only that, when you have a guy like JFK who was leading the charge in so many different things that so many Americans believed in. Yes. I mean, civil rights, the fact that he was trying to create peace talks between countries that we were projected to go to war with, right? He was trying to solidify relationships. And
at the time, he was discussing pulling out of Vietnam.
Right, correct.
Which is a huge deal.
Huge.
And bird rights.
Yes, bird rights were huge. Probably the biggest thing. Bird rights.
For birds?
Yeah, because
he hated birds, man.
No. He loved birds.
He was a big bird.
He wanted the birds to stay, and they wanted to eradicate the birds and make them robots. And here we are.
And everybody knows this.
So
I think we all know that.
Andy's quick plug is one of the far-fetched theories, right? That he had parakeets, he loved them.
You guys don't remember the campaign trailer?
Yeah, no,
birds are real.
Yeah,
birds are
real.
All right.
Yeah, ain't it? Pretty sure JFK didn't catch a bullet because he loved his parakeet.
Multiple.
There's no evidence to say he didn't.
Multiple bullets, as DJ puts.
Yes.
Yes. Let's not forget.
Before we move too far away, I wanted to talk about one thing DJ and Andy talked about.
Yeah, hit us, code man. You've been silent. Hit us.
Yeah,
dude.
I know. I
Hit
just
us with some knowledge right now.
Recent events, obviously, all the stuff going on with Ukraine. I don't know if you guys saw, but the Ukrainian president's he's in gear and stuff like that. He's got bulletproof vest on. He's out on he's out on the out on there. But then someone said or someone sent my wife something. It was oh, he's not on the front lines or whatever. And she's like, oh, I don't know about that. It's and I'm like, well, no, he's not on the front lines. Obviously, he would not be on the front line.
No, right.
If he died, it's a total sign of dominance for the Russian people to take him out.
Right.
It would end everything. They would be so demoralized. And that's exactly what happened in the JFK thing. That's why they wanted to cover up, because if it got out that Russian spies got in our country and assassinated our presidents with ease like that,
it would weaken us.
It would fall apart.
Yeah.
Not only would it fall apart, but it would allow other countries that felt maybe weakened by us and our power, and that at least that fear of us to probably take a crack at us as well.
Totally.
But I'll say this: the Ukraine president came out and said that he was not going to be leaving, and that they wanted him to leave.
Yeah, I know.
So he's not on the front lines, but he has not left the capital.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's not what
I'll go down with the country.
That's what I'm saying.
Captain with the ship.
He's in full gear and he's ready to go. He's rallying the troops and everything, but he ain't going and shoot people.
Well, no, just you don't put your 4-star generals out for the same reason. You do not put your commanding officers out in front. They're there because of their knowledge and their wisdom, right? And so, as far as talking on Oswald, so the theory and what you're kind of talking about, DJ, is that it's potentially that he had with the KGB being possibly a Russian infiltrator, that what do they call it, sleeper cells, right? Where they raise them up, they send them into another country. That person then raises up in that country, becomes he even served in the military. He served in the Marines. So he portrays this American man, right? And so what you're saying is potentially he was
what makes it
Russian spy?
What makes it more interesting is the fact that, again, we already went over it, but for people who don't know, he was killed. Jack Ruby killed Lee Harvey Oswald before they could really interrogate him to get any information. And so that kind of vagueness of not truly knowing why he shot the president. I mean, in any conspiracy theory, and I think this is one of the great American murder mysteries, and I think that's why it's talked about to this day. In instances of great tragedy where there's a murder or something, and there's a lot of vague details, you can pull so many things. I mean, even the Zapruder film, the film of JFK being shot, you can just narrow down every little thing that could have been, the guy with the umbrella. Did he have a gun in the umbrella? All these little things you can hone in on because there's so little information that can be proved.
Right.
So the fact that Lee Harvey Oswald, he was never interrogated, he was murdered, it just opens the door for so many things that he could have been. Who knows? And
that's where a lot of these theories kind of connect, and they've got some similar vibes, even down to documenting calls. Ruby had documented calls to a ton of associates of some of the biggest crime bosses in America.
That was my question. I don't know enough about the Ruby thing. What was his connection tied to it?
And we'll get into some of the theories. We don't.
Oh my gosh,
we don't know.
Goes down a huge rabbit hole.
He has connections, connections to crime boss, mafia.
Here, you guys can hear that. I don't know as much about Jack Ruby. All I know about Jack Ruby is he was a strip club owner. He was a nightclub owner,
right?
In the area right next to the police station. He had become friendly with a lot of the police force in that area. I mean, there's a recording of J. Edgar Hoover talking to Lyndon B. Johnson, and he was explaining to him why he was allowed in the area where Lee Harvey Oswald even was, is because he had become friendly with the police. The police would come to his nightclub.
And one of the police were documented to even be Jack, they say buddy, what did you do? They say it
he was a friend of that police force, and he was allowed into that area, and that's where he shot him.
And a little tidbit. Do you know that one of the top money laundering businesses in that time, in that era for the mafia, was strip clubs?
Yeah,
it was
probably.
So you're looking at a strip club owner constantly having associated calls, and again, we'll get into some deeper theories as far as that. I'm sorry,
I was just going to try to brush over it.
It's super sad. It took a second to sink in. This guy.
Well, like you're saying about Ruby, because we can't even get back on topic. We can't even get back on topic because he's derailed everything.
I just said tight.
That's cool, man, for you though.
Ruby. Anyway, back to the serious stuff. Enough all these jokes, Cody. No, so Ruby's ties with the mafia, and one of the big things was JFK had a lot of ties with the mafia. So that's another lane of conspiracies, whether he was killed due to his association with the mafia. Ruby's in, there's just a lot of things out there. I don't really know much about that stuff. I really know much more about the third shooter at the Grassy Knoll. We can get into that later.
No, I mean, before I think we get into some of these big theories, because there's like the New Orleans one, the CIA one,
what's the New Orleans
Service one, which was crazy as all.
What's the New Orleans
one? What's that?
What's the New Orleans one?
Yeah, so we'll get into that. There's some guys that had some connections to Oswald that had businesses established in New Orleans, also connected to the mob. So there's the New Orleans conspiracy, and again, it's just called the New Orleans conspiracy because of the majority of the benefactors of this particular conspiracy happen to just reside and have businesses out in New Orleans. Okay. And then, of course, CIA, the Secret Service one, the industrial complex one, which made sense a little far, but we'll see. And then, of course, one of the biggest ones, the organized crime one.
Yeah, that's kind of the more
and
popular.
So before we get into that, I'm curious to hear about the bullets. I know that I've seen 2 shots. I didn't know. I did a lot of research. I didn't know that there was a third or multiple.
So this is its own can of worms. So
let's open it up. Let's open up.
We'll open up the
third shooter idea.
Let's crack that
so
can.
the third shooter idea is this. There's a lot to get into here. So I'm going to read this. I had to show this because coming in here, I went.
Let's talk about the second shooter before we talk about the.
Oh no, sorry.
The third one.
I didn't mean to say there. The second shooter is what I'm saying.
Okay,
maybe I misspoke.
I have a third shooter.
3 shots. Oh, you have a third.
I'm like, when he said third, I was like,
I have
shots.
a third shooter.
Like,
then I misspoke. There's 3 shots, 2 shooters.
Okay.
3 shots, 2 shooters.
Okay.
And before the pod, we were going over the Zapruder film. If anyone doesn't know what that is, Abraham Zapruder, he had filmed the JFK assassination. Just, JFK came to town. He was in Dallas. He was campaigning for re-election. And so, it's just like anything else. Everyone's out. They're watching. This guy just happened to be filming.
He worked for a media source, didn't he?
Yeah, I believe so. I don't know.
And they told him to go get. They were like, "Hey, go get your camera."
So
he's a journalist. They said it was.
He was a journalist.
Yeah.
And they told him, "Hey, go get your camera because we need to get this on record."
And it just so happens that this dude, his footage of JFK being assassinated is like the most. This was the main in the Warren Committee. Piece of evidence that they used to investigate this. But so anyway, my point was we were showing Andy that before we recorded because he had never seen it, and they had showed it on the Geraldo Rivera show, and that's the 1975.
1975, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Them showing it on there was the first time the American public had ever seen that footage.
It's gruesome. It's brutal.
It's very gruesome.
If you think about it, that was almost 10 years after the
That's 10 years after. And that's when this stuff
12.
really opened up the theories because no one had actually seen JFK getting assassinated. This is the 60s. Number one, they're not showing that footage. No one really had access to it. So any information that they had seen up to that point was from the Warren Committee. The Warren Committee was something that Lyndon B. Johnson, he formed to investigate the assassination of JFK. Yep. Many people disagree with the results of the Warren Committee. They basically said that Lee Harvey Oswald was the only shooter. And I believe, and there's other people that believe that he was not, but they had only said that to calm down public opinion, let everything lie. So the only information that the American public had was from the Warren Committee. They released all of the books. They're probably in the Library of Congress. But it's all the books from that committee of all the evidence compiled. And they have still images of every frame of the Zapruder film.
Wow.
Where it gets interesting, though, is like you were talking about earlier. It's 313 or is it 613?
It does say 313, frame 313.
Okay,
they record a second shot.
So there's many things that lead into this. I'll just start dropping a little information. We can discuss as we go.
Well, I think the biggest thing is we just need to describe for those. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that haven't seen this video.
I would suggest watching this.
For sure, 100%.
It's gruesome, but
it is gruesome. But if you watch the shots come in, I mean, he takes one what appears to be in the back, and then when his head gets shot, his head recoils backward.
Yes,
and it then if you're looking at it from that point of view, you see that it's 2 different shots, 2 different shooters, right? I mean, that's what it looks like.
So if you look it up, if you go on YouTube right now and type in JFK Zapruder film, or even if you just type in footage, this will probably be what pops up. You're going to watch it, and you're most likely your brain's going to say, okay, obviously it looked like he got shot from behind because he goes forward, and then the big shot that kills him is the one that hits him in the head, and he goes backward. And it when you first see it, it's pretty obvious. When they released all the evidence from the Warren Committee, all these still images were in these books. Frame 313, 14, and 15, and this is proven, were all reversed. To this day, they haven't corrected that, and they even asked J. Edgar Hoover about it, and he said it was just a mistake. But reversing those frames makes it look like it's going the opposite direction. And the big thing with the Warren Committee is that, I mean, even the governor, I forget his name, the governor of Texas, he says to this day, when they interviewed him on the 20th anniversary, now that's not to this day, I believe it's 1985, the 20th anniversary of JFK's killing, he says, I do not believe the Warren Committee or any of the results that came out of that. And he was in the car with JFK, he was shot, and he said he heard a third shot. But they say there was only 2 shots from Lee Harvey Oswald. Sorry, I'm not trying to go on a tangent. The point was, these 313 frames were reversed. So the American public was under the assumption that he was shot from behind and went forward. But once the first time this footage was ever shown on the Geraldo Rivera show in 1975, that's when all these theories started, because they saw for the first time that JFK was shot from behind, and then another one from the front goes backwards, and they reopened the investigation.
So I think most people know this happened, right? And I'll be honest with you, I knew the details about when it happened, dates, that time. Like I knew about the Grassy Knoll, I knew about Oswald, but I had never really watched this. I had no real desire to go and watch this before today. I mean, maybe I did, I just didn't really ever put much effort into it. So we're watching it before the podcast, and we're watching it, and I'm like, instantly, to me, it looks like it's 2 shot.
Yeah, instantly.
Right?
Isn't that crazy?
Guy that he shoots guns.
I did it. I took the glasses off.
There's an explosion that kind of happens in the front. It clearly looks like an impact. That's where the impact is. And then I go, why is Jackie on the back of the car? What's she doing? And your guy's like, she's scooping up his brain, the back of his head. And I'm thinking, okay, so clearly he got shot from the front.
So
it's what it looks like.
So there's a lot.
The brain's got to come out somewhere, right? They didn't come out the front.
Right, but I mean, just understanding, I hunted as impact. The way that works is you have the initial impact, which usually has a lot of, velocity. Yeah. And then there's usually an explosion at the backside where everything that's coming and goes through explodes out the back. Yeah. And so I know that's being gross, and I'm not trying to be gross.
No,
but when you're looking at that from the impact thing, if I was to shoot an apple, the apple would pop in the front and explode in the back.
Exactly.
So the reaction of someone who has no former... I've never had a chance to watch this. I think it's interesting to watch and kind of go, oh, wow, crazy. It does make sense why they would wait 10 years to show it. My thought process is the country's probably not ready for it. And even in 10 years, I'm sure it was a lot to process.
Oh, I would
dropped. But for her to jump on the back, I didn't even process it in my mind. I saw the impact, right? But for her to jump on the trunk of the car the way she did, I'm like, what is she trying to get away? And Cody was like, no, she's scooping him up.
Yeah, you can see her grabbing stuff at the tail end of the back end of the car.
She's trying everything and she can't to try to save her husband.
Now that guy who jumps on the back, that's a Secret Service agent. I have it in my notes here. His name's Clint Hill. He was on the vehicle directly behind. He even says he heard 3 shots that day. He jumps on to help Jackie Kennedy. And as soon as you see it, it looks almost completely obvious that he gets shot from the front. Again, not trying to be gross, but his brains or anything that came out of his head go on the back. Jackie Kennedy jumps on the vehicle and start scooping that stuff up. So
he's trying to get her to get down.
Yes, and he's trying to protect her. Now he says, I watched an interview with him because a lot of people say like there's a lot of conspiracy how this could happen. He says at this time, like today, 3,200 Secret Service agents today. It's a large force protecting the president. At this time, this is 63. Dang it.
No, you're good. Yeah.
At this time, there was 34 Secret Service agents. 34.
Well, and there is a whole conspiracy about the Secret Service that even one of the guys that was in charge of investigating the Secret Service, and we'll go into that detail. He points at some stuff that when you hear it and you read it, you're like, wait, what's going on? And you can even see in the video, like the car that's behind Kennedy had just a plethora of Secret Service agents around it, where his did not.
Yeah.
And that delves into something that this individual that investigated the Secret Service, some of the stuff that he found through that investigation. Now, he's not saying that the Secret Service did it, but his lean is that there was some kind of control, like somebody did, somebody set this thing up.
Well, what you're bringing up is a great point, which is in situations like this, the most likely answer, not to rain on the parade, the most likely answer is security wasn't on Kennedy's vehicle because the public wanted to see Kennedy. But the problem is when there's a situation like this, everything becomes a theory.
Right.
Because you're looking at it with a microscope. So why were they back there? Why was this way? You're diving into people's personal lives. Hey, this guy's cousin was Russian. You know what I'm saying? So then, no, really, that's what happens in these situations.
Well,
especially in the Cold War.
Well, it's a funny thing. On our last podcast, we talked about Jack the Ripper, and I was saying, like, had this been nowadays and it was just a guy and he was able to be caught after 5 murders, would he be as notorious as Jack the Ripper was in 1885? Probably not. We wouldn't still be talking about him. I mean, it'd be terrible and it would be like, oh, this is crazy, but he wouldn't be as notorious as he is by the unknown, by not knowing who he is, not knowing why it happened, or if it was just 5 people or if it was 8 people.
100%.
Because of this unknown and this unanswerable desire, people go down rabbit holes.
It's able to live on.
It's able to live on.
And that's why they probably wanted this to die at Lee Harvey Oswald, because they didn't want this to live on, because it's just more talk in public eye. When they showed this footage on ABC, I'm sorry to double back, they reopened the investigation because there was an outcry. Saw it. They said, there's no way there was a single shooter that shot him. Something came from the front. That's when the Grassy Knoll theory was introduced. And then the magic bullet theory, which is, I mean, this is stuff, I guess, listen, look up. I have a diagram. This is the single bullet. It went through the back. This is what they say for the record. This came out in the Warren investigation, not the second investigation. In the Warren,
because remember, he's shooting from the warehouse that at this point is behind.
So he was shot
behind JFK.
Right, Lee Harvey Oswald. He shot him from the school book depository in the lunchroom on the 2nd floor,
where he worked, by the way.
Yes, where he worked. So that's on the back side of JFK. That is
with a hunting rifle, a bolt action hunting rifle.
Everyone here's papers going around. It's because I have all these papers. So Lee Harvey Oswald is in the building. They say the bullet went through his back, up through his neck, came down, entered through the governor's back, went through the guy's wrist, through his wrist into his thigh. 1, 2, 3, 4, I believe 5.
Ricochet? For real?
Yeah, they're saying that ricocheted. Now consider this. This bullet is going through bones. It's going through organs. It's going through 2 different people. And there was 6 entrance and entry, or there were 6 points of entry until it landed in the guy's thigh. And they said
the crazy thing is one person wrote about Connolly. They said when the bullet entered, it was not tumbling because it was a clean hit into Connolly. So the ricochet effect would have suggested that you would have a tumbling bullet, which means it would have tore up his back a little bit. Any exit wound would have been all shredded.
This is happening right here.
Yeah,
and what I'm showing you right there, like on frame 235.
So this ain't
everything just happened right there. In like that 1 second.
Is this where the third bullet?
No, this is the magic bullet theory, because they still have this bullet. It's in, I believe, the Smithsonian. You want to see the bullet? You would expect anyone here who's shot a gun, you would assume that this bullet is destroyed.
Shredded.
Any of our listeners, or their listeners, sorry, I'm simply a guest.
Jump
on, any of the listeners, jump on to Google and type in JFK Magic Bullet. You can see the bullet. This is that bullet.
Oh, wow.
It's pristine, except for some minor damage here. People have recreated this test. I don't. So now your brain's going, something's up here.
Yeah, that doesn't seem right.
This is the bullet that they say.
I can understand if it stopped in flesh.
It's got no lacerations.
In order for it to in order for it to ricochet the way that it did, it would have
like 3 different bones.
It would have to have impact. It would have to be impacted, and it's not.
Yeah, it's very nothing.
Small dent here.
That's why there's so much conspiracy around this, because things don't add up.
Now, that's the bullet that was pulled from Connolly's leg, right? This is the bullet
that was pulled from the leg.
Yeah. Okay.
So for anyone that, you guys are listening, we're not actually showing these. I guess I could post this as a picture for this week. Literally, it's a bullet that has like a small indentation at the very front of it, but it looks completely normal.
Yeah, there's no lacerations on the side.
If you shoot something, oftentimes if it hits bone of any kind, even if it shatters the bone, it causes that tip to be compressed. Usually you would see it as like a bullet firing it into a wall, right?
And there was, now again, just to go over in case no one's following along, there's from the Warren Committee, they said there were 2 shots fired. One that went through JFK's back, that went into the governor in the front, and the second shot that came from behind that hit him in the head. So that's what they're releasing that they said happened. So this magic bullet wouldn't have been the one that killed JFK, but it still is. This would lead to believe that there was multiple shots going on that caused this. Not, again, maybe on an off chance that this bullet is the one, or it's just like a magic bullet. maybe it just on an off chance that this bullet went through two people.
Yeah, the extremely low probability is like,
but it's a low probability considering all this stuff that's going on.
So, I mean, for sure we know. I mean, we don't for sure know, but we are pretty confident that there's two shooters. I mean, you can just see the angles from which he shot, the different things that happened there. But I guess Cody has a theory on a third, which I didn't find that in any research, but I'm super curious.
Okay, so this is super cool. It's super into the weeds. Oh, you have something?
Could I just wrap this?
Yeah,
and then I'll be done.
Yeah.
You're not done.
Just so we can wrap up the two shooter theory, and then we can get crazy. We can go to aliens, birds. Just so I got a pin on this because I don't want to forget this. So here's the timeline. JFK is shot. There's the Warren Committee, JFK shot. They capture Lee Harvey Oswald. Lee Harvey Oswald is shot by Jack Ruby. They don't get to investigate. They have the Warren Committee. The Warren Committee comes out with some kind of suspicious, bogus results that have a lot of controversy around them. I mean, they said, I believe there's a statistic that said 70 to 80% of the country didn't even believe the results of that. Yeah. So that comes out, but they say Lee Harvey Oswald was the only shooter and there was only 2 shots. I mean, and keep this in mind. This is coming from a CIA guy. Yeah, that's for vague.
Yeah.
But this is a memo. He wrote it.
Some dude in a suit.
No, it was a memo. I have his name. I don't want to rustle notes. Here's what he said. He was sending this to J. Edgar Hoover. This is a memo. 1963. This is the same day as JFK's funeral. This is November 25th, 1963. The public must be satisfied that Oswald was the assassin, that he did not have Confederates who are still at large, and that the evidence was such that he would have been convicted at trial. Speculation about Oswald's motivation ought to be cut off. And there's a lot more in this paper, but there was
I like that, and I don't know that it's a big deal, but I like to use the word Confederates.
Yes,
because you got to figure, JFK's stance was very much, what I guess the North would have stood for as far as equal rights and everything, and then Confederacy's always had that ploy towards the other way, and he uses that term Confederates.
I don't think he's meaning it in that way, but I understand it's a play on words.
It is. It is. It's kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, he's using it as accomplices, right? Like, we want to make sure that they don't think he had any accomplices.
People against liberty and democracy and
this memo that goes on that was sent. It's classified to me. It's released now. You could probably look it up. Just look up JFK, Mr. Moyer memo, and it's the CIA document where they're basically encouraging. We have to pin this on. Not pin it on. He was a shooter. Lee Harvey Oswald was one of the 2 shooters, but we need to leave it there because we don't want this to continue. Hey, we caught the guy. Everyone chill out.
Yeah. And this is kind of where I think a lot of conspiracy theories start to evolve, because the reality is they could have just been doing that to protect the fundamental strength of the country.
Oh yeah. I'm not saying it was something crazy.
I know, but some
I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm sure it was. I mean, did he go on TV and say he didn't do it?
Oh, what'd you say?
Oswald was like,
Oswald was shot.
Oswald was shot. He never got a chance. He was never interviewed.
On
live
television.
On live TV.
He was shot on TV. Yeah. I thought I had read somewhere that he had actually said
he did.
That he was innocent.
There is a brief interview with him where he says he was innocent.
Yeah.
I still believe he was one of the 2 shooters.
Oh, I agree.
Let me wrap up my thing, though, because we could be here for a long time with me going into this, and I want to get into the fun conspiracies. This is the stuff that I think is real, and then we can get into the fun stuff.
We got 10 seconds left on the show.
All right, 10 seconds.
No,
here
you're
we
good.
go.
I'm just playing. Go.
So all that to say on the timeline, it's very clear that the government did not want there to be more than one shooter, and they were very loose. They even said after that they caught Oswald, the evidence was loosely given out. People were giving away evidence, trinkets. It was a poorly ran investigation from the FBI and from the Dallas Police Department. They said, we have Oswald. He's the guy. We're done with it. 10 years later, the public finally sees the footage on the Geraldo Rivera show. There's an outcry. They reopened the investigation. And that one's called... But basically...
You're talking about the HSCA, right? The House Select Committee of Assassinations?
Bingo, baby.
Yes.
The House... Yeah. You're on it, dude. The House Select Committee.
Which was put in by... LBJ.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they go back to the House Select Committee on Assassins. They reopen the investigation.
Yep.
They hire this guy, and this is super interesting. By the way, most of this information, if you're curious, Josiah Thompson, he wrote a book called 6 Seconds in Dallas. He's been following the JFK a lot of stuff I got from him. Dr. James Barger, he's an acoustics expert. He was known, he pinpointed the location of the National Guard gunfire during the Kent State shootings. So this dude, he is known for helping police force. He was known for helping locate shooters based on acoustics. So what he did was they brought him in, and he was trying to locate. There was a whole theory on if there was a second shooter at the Grassy Knoll. So there's a lot of evidence, by the way. They found pace marks. There's a fence where they believe they caught someone on camera behind the Grassy Knoll, behind the fence, where a direct shot could have came to hit JFK in the head. When the initial shot happened, everyone ran to the Grassy Knoll because instinctually, just like when Andy watched that video, they said, oh, the shot came from there.
Yeah.
When they went to the back, the Dallas police force said they found mud prints because someone was pacing and cigarette butts all in the back.
Did you watch Umbrella Academy?
No,
yeah.
I did not.
Yeah.
You should watch Umbrella Academy.
It's good.
Did they discuss this?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I know who shot him.
You take a play.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
we're gonna throw that in
basically what this dude, James Barger, was, because I know I'm kind of ranting here. James Barger, they brought in to determine if this second shooter could have been at the Grassy Knoll. He's a acoustics expert. He helped pinpoint other shooters using these technology at the time. What he did is he went in there and he set up 36 microphones all over Dealey Plaza. They shot blanks into the air. They got I'm no expert, so I don't fully understand the technology. But essentially, they did test shots fired from the school book depository, from the Grassy Knoll, and all of this was based off of a recording that came from the. Talk about Cody.
That's my whole thing. This was like,
am I killing your vibe right now?
I was just gonna say that. I was just gonna say that the research you're talking about includes a third shooter in the building across the books on the other side.
So that okay,
yeah.
So they do all this thing, blah 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 blah. I'm ranting. Most people aren't even following along. They do. They're
like get to the aliens.
They do an acoustic test, and this random footage that they got, or recording that they got off of a Dallas police officer's microphone was open. So there's in this microphone, they hear more shots that were reported in the Warren Committee. So they test out the area and they completely replicate where they thought, the guy said 78% sure where those shots came from that matched up with the recording that they found on the police open recording. Follow along with me. All that to say, in this committee, they show the footage of JFK getting shot, and they layered the experiment over that with the theory that there were multiple shooters and that footage being recorded. It perfectly lined up to where shot from the back, his head goes forward, shot from the front, his head goes back. They said in the committee room, it's an open courtroom, and you can watch the footage on YouTube. It was dead silent.
Yeah.
Because it literally, they had proved that there was more than one shooter.
Science.
And this is where I'll leave it off. Now, if you're listening, I probably did not explain this very well.
Could have brought in Bill Nye.
But all I will say is the committee concluded, this was their committee conclusion.
Oh.
The committee concluded that the shot came from the Grassy Knoll, but it missed.
All right.
You hear that? So the shot came from the Grassy Knoll, but it missed. That's what the official committee said.
So this is where the third shooter or third bullet comes in. This is the hypothesis of the third bullet.
No, it's not a hypothesis. The government committee, sorry, all the paper wrestling around, said there was a second shooter, but they said the shot missed. The reason they said the shot missed, this theory, is because the shot that missed would have been the one that killed JFK. And it would have looked like that there was another guy that they never caught that killed him.
Right.
So they said there was a second shot from the Grassy Knoll, but Lee Harvey Oswald was the one that killed him.
Right. So, they had to still accept. They were like, okay, we recognize that you got it. You found it out. You did all the math.
And this is 1978.
But no.
It's still Oswald.
Yeah, it's still Oswald.
Okay. So now expand upon that for the third.
And now
shooter.
I'm done.
All I was going to say is that same research, they also took like a third shooter and they placed him on the building across.
I'm looking at the map here. It looks like it's Dallas County Records Building.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's across from
and it's on top of the Records Building. And there's also a theory that there was a shot from there, but that one, and that was the one that was, because there's 3 shots, right? The CIA and the investigation said that there's only 2, but so many other people who were actually there that day.
The governor said 3.
Huh?
The governor said that. Right. It was in the car.
And a bunch of other federal agents said that. And also to add on to your Grassy Knoll guy who was like pacing and stuff like that, there was an agent who walked back there and talked to a guy who had mud on his clothes and muddy shoes and flashed it. Said, hey, what are you doing back here? He's like, oh, I'm I'm press or FBI or whatever. And he kind of like flashed his thing back there. And then he just kind of walked back, but he didn't get a good look at the guy. So he doesn't know who he was. But when he came back there after the shot was fired, he didn't know where he went. So
definitely need to watch Umbrella Academy.
Yeah.
There's a whole scene where he has that whole interaction where somebody comes back and goes, "Hey, what are you doing back here?"
Yeah.
And he starts talking to
they
him.
They just twist it to the
show.
I'll
watch the agenda of the show, but it's very cool.
You should.
It's very cool.
Good show.
It's kind of one of those. It's kind of like that Loki thing with DB Cooper, right? Where he just all of a sudden you're like, "Oh, really gonna play into that?" But yeah, it's good.
It's interesting that it's called Umbrella Academy because the Umbrella Man, the Umbrella Man is at the bottom of the Grassy Knoll.
Well, that's what they do. You got to watch.
You got to watch the show.
They tie that in.
Yeah.
And why it's called. I don't want to
spoil
Academy.
it for anyone. I mean, it's been out for a while, but the season 2 is getting ready. 3 is getting ready to come.
Yeah.
So
good show. And that second season where they do that, hilarious. And so what DJ's talking about, and what even Cody with the third, a lot of these things will then tie into some of the deep theories. The New Orleans one, I'm just going to briefly touch on. There was a private investigator company owned by a guy named Guy Bannister. He had a couple employees named David Ferry and Jack Martin. First, David Ferry, they dig a little on this guy, and they found out that he was part of a group called, he went to these things called the Civil Air Patrol meeting in New Orleans, and they found a picture of the Civil Air Patrol meetings with all these young men, and he's on the far left, and Oswald's on the far right. So this guy's way out in New Orleans, and they connect this guy. Different pieces of this, like Guy Bannister was supposedly he was trying to get a mob boss off from being deported to Guatemala or something like that. But the big one was the district attorney Jim Garrison believed through investigation that a group of right-wing extremists, including David Ferry and Guy Bannister, were involved with elements of the Central Intelligence Agency in conspiracy to kill Kennedy. This is the DA. Okay. Right, this is the guy of the head of attorneys that prosecutes criminals. He goes on record saying this, and then Garrison would later claim that the motive for the assassination was anger over Kennedy's attempts to obtain peace settlements in both Cuba and Vietnam. Right, because here's this president who believed in peace. Now, where this starts to expand into like the organized crime one. So supposedly, I guess a lot of mafia were making a ton of money off of like illegal casinos and casinos over in Cuba and all that. And apparently Fidel Castro was trying to shut this stuff down. And Kennedy's over here trying to be friends with him, which would have shut their money down. So that's one thought process here.
And Kennedy did have mob ties.
Kennedy had mob ties?
Yeah.
Oh.
This is a whole other vein. This is a separate thing. Oh yeah, Kennedy was having like affairs and stuff.
You came prepared.
Kennedy had mob ties.
Kennedy's part of the familia.
I mean, this is one of the big conspiracies that, of course, again, like I said, someone is assassinated in this way with open answer or open-ended questions. You can make connections to rabbit trail. But the whole thing is that people said that he was having an affair with Marilyn Monroe, and there is some evidence to suggest that Marilyn Monroe was killed in a mysterious way. Some people think that he
told her stuff.
Well, she wasn't killed. I mean, I guess officially they said she committed suicide, but her death was very mysterious.
So was your boy in his prison cell.
Right. No cameras?
That's the thing. If you go, again, down the rabbit hole, as Andy says, I mean, YouTube video after YouTube video, there's so many like people that were connected to this investigation, reporters that died in mysterious ways, randomly had killed themselves, who had freak accidents. And all of it is just very odd.
There was a page of 40 some odd, or maybe it was 30. I don't know, but I was trying to read through them. I don't know how they were all tied, but there was this long page. You can Google it, and you can see that a ton of witnesses all had mysterious deaths within a certain time frame of Kennedy being shot.
Well, okay. So
what you got, Andy?
Wow.
It's
very small. I just looked up something the other day. I was like, well, I wonder how, kind of like the Jack the Ripper. We want to know how many suspects there were. There were hundreds for Jack the Ripper. And this because, again, there's no answer, so we just keep looking, right? 42 groups, 82 assassinations, and 214 people have been accused. So you've had 82 assassinations since that they believe are all tied to this original assassination of JFK.
I'm sorry, how many?
82. Now, that may or may not be true, but they're just, people are already going out there. There's 42 groups that they believe are, that people are saying are responsible. 214 individuals are being said are responsible. And of those, they believe that there's 82 assassinations that kind of spurred from this initial assassination, actually leading up and then after. I just think it's crazy, right? And the reality is, it could just be that there were a couple of people that were upset or frustrated with him and took him out. I still to this day never understand why we think it's a good idea to put the president of our country in a convertible, regardless if he's got 35 people around him or not.
We will actually talk about that real quick.
No, that's undercut. 34 people to cover it, not just around him, to cover that entire area.
I know. I'm just saying, if we had 35 people on the car.
Oh, yeah, still.
The point of putting the president of the free world open, you know what I mean?
Different time, dude. Crazy.
It's insane to me.
Oh, yeah.
So, let's just talk about this now, since we're talking about the Secret Service and the convertible.
Get into it.
The HSCA, which we've talked about, the House Select Committee of Assassinations, investigated the Secret Service, of course. They concluded that they weren't necessarily involved. However, they found them extremely deficient in their duties from what they were trained to do.
Exactly.
They said that no action were taken by the agent in the front seat. This is big. They wrote in big thing that
the driver,
that first shot, the passenger seat, he should have thrown his body. He should have jumped to the back and thrown his body. He's trained to do that. You never see him move out of his seat.
I thought the passenger was the governor.
There was the
or is it 3 rows?
I'd have to see here, but the footage is right there. I believe it's JFK and Jackie Kennedy are in the back.
The
governor is what?
It is. It's 3 rows.
And the second row, and then the third row.
I didn't realize it was 3 rows.
Yeah, because here.
Well,
He should have. This is the head investigators for the HSCA said that they are trained that any kind of sound that sounds like a gunshot, you just jump and you cover your body. There was too much time in between those shots. He never moved. He never does anything. None of them do. The other one is that Vince Palomera, who was one of the lead investigators, interviewed multiple Secret Service agents, and that the driver advised that requests to remove the protective bubble over the limo, it should have had a protective bubble, even though the top was dropped, there's a protective bubble for it, that the request to remove the protective bubble, not having agents positioned near the rear bumper or around the sides of the car, as well as reducing police motorcade, all were not requests of JFK. He went on record to say that. So all these things, again, if you look at the car behind it, had multiple agents. JFK's did not. And so all these different things were requested, and he admitted that this was not requested by JFK.
I got to say, I would like to believe it's probably just a media thing, right? You got a press secretary saying, hey, he wants to be seen. You know, he may not be requesting it, but the president's coming here, and he's coming in an open limo because he wants people to see him.
Yeah, it's re-election.
But you're missing again.
Re-election's coming.
He went on record to say this was not a request of JFK.
I understand, but they have their staff in place because those people have strengths. And my argument is that person's probably saying he wants to be seen. It's re-election.
Yeah,
and they make a case. Now, again, the president should be the only one ordering around Secret Service.
Right.
Yeah, 100%. Really, only one.
The only one.
And my initial thought is, we're talking seconds between these shots, correct? Right. Assuming that there's 2 shots, it's seconds, right? We're talking about frame 313
the one guy
to 316.
The guy who said he was on that back Lincoln, when he heard the first shot, said he hears something that sounds like a gunshot, turns around and goes, huh? And then JFK shot.
Because my initial reaction is, why is the driver is also Secret Service? I'm swerving, I'm dipping, I'm out.
Well, it's a loud day too. Defend the Secret Service. People cheering.
I hear you.
No, again, these guys didn't say that they were involved. They just said that there was a lot of deficiencies.
No, I'm not saying that they're involved. We're just talking about perception, right? When I watch the video, it almost appears as if no one in the car knows that these 2 individuals have been shot.
And then boom,
besides them. It's all of a sudden she turns to him and goes, like, what are you doing?
And then by the time
he's leaning forward, right? Yeah. So it's possible they couldn't hear it.
Well, and so one other piece about the Secret Service conspiracy theory is, in the 1990s, the Assassination Records Review Board, which was created when Congress passed the JFK Record Act, right, requested access to the Secret Service records. They were told by the Secret Service that in January 1995, in violation of the JFK Records Act, the Secret Service destroyed protective survey reports that covered JFK's trip from September 24th through November 8th, 1963. So there's like all this record that all just got, hey, we're going to destroy this. You know,
the dates you listed are before the assassination, correct?
Right.
So you're talking about like all the travel and all the stuff that happened before he got assassinated.
Right. So there's talking about the deficiencies of the Secret Service.
Right.
A lot of these guys believed that there was a lot of evidence that would have suggested that something may take place, and that there was stuff along the trip, and they needed to review this to see, did the Secret Service mess up? Did they know there was a potential assassination going to happen? In fact, Abraham Bolden, the first African-American on the White House Secret Service detail, claimed to overhear agents say that they would not protect Kennedy from a would-be assassin days before the assassination. So again, whatever the case may be, just conspiracy theories, but there's some stuff here that looks like the Secret Service may have...
Negligence looks like conspiracy theory in a situation like this. And I think...
Yeah.
I think spoiler alert, most of this stuff I don't think is conspiracy. I think it's just you've got negligence on all ends. Like Andy said, there should have been better protection. They didn't, blah, blah, blah. A president gets shot. It's a poor investigation. On one hand, then they're freaking out trying to protect the public because Lee Harvey Oswald has association with Russia. So they're trying to... I just think overall, I don't think it's as much conspiracy for some nefarious purpose on our government. I think it was just poorly handled, poorly ran investigation. There's so many things.
And that's the linear path to look at it for sure. But you always got to look at the what ifs.
Well,
right?
The thing that's interesting is the why. Because Jack Ruby gets shot. Because we're talking about our side of it. At the end of the day, JFK was assassinated. We don't know why. Lee Harvey Oswald gets killed. Lee Harvey Oswald gets killed by Jack Ruby before they can interrogate him. What was the purpose of the assassination? Why did they kill Lee Harvey Oswald? What was he going to say? Where is the almost confirmed, not completely, but almost confirmed second shooter? That's the side to me that is super interesting.
Right.
And
then you guys know what the military industrial complex is, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right. So think about if you're a multi-billionaire and you own arms factory. Mm-hmm. This is Vietnam War. Like these guys are making hand over fist. Potential war against Russia is burning up. You got Cuba. You got all this stuff, and these guys are like, "Man, we making money." And then you got JFK come in going, "No, I'm gonna shut it all down. We're gonna have peace." So that's another theory that Texas Senator Ralph Yarbaugh even said that he believed Kennedy was shot because he was going to end all war. Mm-hmm. And that
all war, peace.
And the crazy thing is that so Dwight D. at the end of his term, he said that he warned in a speech, Dwight D. before JFK takes over, he warns that to be wary of the arms industry and military establishment industrial complex. Mm-hmm. He warns about it. He's like, too much power.
Yeah, that was
too much money.
That was
that was his going out speech. Like he's like, hey, I'm handing this over to JFK. By the way, people,
it's a super famous speech.
You need to be weary of what's going on
because that's the first time the American public had ever even heard the term industrial war complex.
They didn't know anything about it.
They didn't even know that was a
Nobody
thing.
even knew arms dealers. Like they just figured that the government was making their own stuff. No, there's these big arms dealers making all of these weapons, right? Tons and tons and tons, thousands and thousands, and tanks and airplanes and all this stuff. And they're making billions. And here comes this president. He steps in right behind Dwight D. Eisenhower and says, I'm going to shut war down.
Is that your boy, Cody? Is that one of your
My
boys?
boy Dwight?
Yeah.
Dwight D?
I don't know.
You don't know? All of Cody's boys are only like criminals.
Yeah, the worst.
The worst scum of the earth.
Right? Jack,
and JFK.
Yeah, Jack Ruby. So who are your boys right now? Jack Ruby.
My boy Jack. My boy Lee.
My boy Lee.
Yeah. Lee Harvey Oswald.
Oh yeah. And
Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, my boy Jeff.
So that's a good list.
Oh.
And my boy Jack the Ripper.
That's a good dinner party.
My God.
Do you know what I have I been saying Jack Kirby instead of Jack Ruby? I think Jack Kirby is? He wrote Marvel Comics.
Right.
This whole time I'm like, Jack Kirby shot Lee Harvey Oswald.
Here we go.
Yeah, that's not actually him.
You just tangent to the far left.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about Lee Harvey Oswald? Or not Lee Harvey, but Jack Ruby for a minute?
Yeah,
well,
Is that what you're going to talk about?
Well, no, I just...
the Code Man seems like he's got something brewing right now.
One of the big ones is the organized crime thing. And I think that's where Jack Ruby fills in the most. I mean, truly, as far as Jack Ruby, he owned a strip club, right? And, strip clubs were one of the biggest money laundering for the mafias. And so one of the biggest stances of conspiracy theories of why Kennedy was shot was organized crime. keep in mind, it wasn't, a lot of believe that maybe it wasn't directly, even though JFK was the one shot, that he was shot as an example to really his younger brother. So I don't know if you guys know this, but his younger brother was, I don't even, like, he was high up in the government as far as, like, he was like a governmental DA.
Mm-hmm.
The guy was continuously fighting the war on crime.
Yeah.
And hard going after mob bosses and mafias and money laundering. And so, like, Carlos Marcello, who a mob boss, he actually threatened to kill JFK to throw Robert off.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Yeah. So he throws this out like, hey.
Conspiracy there.
Exactly. He had admitted to a cellmate, which, by the way, happened to be an FBI informant that they put in there to, get this guy talking.
Yes.
That he was part of the crew and people that came together to assassinate JFK. Mm-hmm. But again, only to get at Robert. So I don't know. That sounds far fetched. Why wouldn't you just assassinate Robert? I don't know. Maybe you don't want to fire up JFK even more than he already is. I don't know, but that's that you see a lot of people that 100% believe that it was organized.
What's the alien? Oh,
it just feels like they're closing a loop, right?
They're trying, yeah.
Guy gets assassinated before he goes to trial, or they investigate anything. It's like, open it, or we got a loose end, we're just gonna take it out.
Yeah,
and all because JFK is an open-minded president.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder. Do you guys know what the last thing that was going through his head was?
What?
A bullet.
Listen,
thank you.
I expect this out of Cody. Okay, like I'm sitting
prepared.
Here.
All of Andy's research.
Cody's wit is
all of Andy's research right there has gone out the window.
That's it. I'm done.
And he's like, well, if Cody's not going to do it, I'm going to fire off a few.
I want to hear about the aliens.
I mean, I want to. Well, okay, after seeing the show, but I mean, really, I want to know where how. Why does it UFO? Mind you, why does UFOs end up in every single podcast that we have?
We've been too logical
like
here. I want to get wild, dude.
You know, they have to be real though. Do you know that? That Hubble telescope can see over 700 quadrillion planets?
Well, what's the new one? Didn't they just put a new telescope up that's going to be able to see further?
Oh, I didn't see that.
Oh yeah, they just launched a new one that's supposed to replace the Hubble.
So,
anyways.
700 quadrillion planets the Hubble telescope can see, including Kepler.
I don't even think that's
by the way, they firmly believe.
I think you're making that up.
Quadrillion. No, listen. This is stuff. Google. Yeah, Google's great.
How many zeros are in it?
So a lot.
Okay,
a lot more than a billion. Yeah, let's talk about the fun theories. The crazy off the wall. This one.
This is a bit too serious. We're getting bummed out.
So Oswald apparently missed.
Mm-hmm.
Check this out.
Okay, let's hear this.
Oswald missed.
I'm ready for this.
A Secret Service agent went to fire back, supposedly one of the guys
accidentally shot him
in the car, and that the driver apparently hits the brakes, and he accidentally shot JFK in the head, which is why it looks like it's coming from the front.
Is that a real one?
That's a real theory. Yeah,
it's
actually,
out there.
Do people know there's footage available?
Out there.
I mean,
dude, there's footage available. That's easily disproved.
I don't know. I mean, it's kind of grainy.
There's so many questions.
Is that where you're leaning towards?
There's so many questions. Like, why would you drive through the city?
You can see all of them right there.
Why would you drive a president
in the back of a car? He's turning backwards, see?
But he's already dead at that point.
He's the one.
Well, listen, are you...
And then they were like this. Hey, listen, Bob messed up today.
Also,
Bob didn't hold on to his gun right. Yeah. Now we got to cover this up, clean this up, because we don't want people thinking that the Secret Service just accidentally fires off shots.
I like what Andy's doing over here. I think Andy's started to propose that perhaps the government had something to... Is that where you're leaning right now?
Oh, we've already... Yeah.
I think sometimes you just take a drive through the city to clear your head.
Elaborate on that. Are you... Because I'm curious about this. No, listen, I get it. You're making head jokes.
I'm sorry. I'm running out of them.
Phrasing.
What?
Anyway.
Do you know what lives rent-free in JFK's head?
You can say a bullet?
Nothing.
Oh, nothing. They did say, I mean, I might have this in my notes.
DJ's never coming back.
No.
He's like, I'm done with this place. You guys are crazy.
Clint Hill, that's his name. The guy, he said he looked through JFK's head because he picked him up. And you're actually not off. This sounds like a joke, but it's actually factual. He said his head was completely hollow. So,
yeah, that would scar someone.
So you're not wrong. He seemed fine. That's not an interview with him. He seemed cool.
Yeah, after a few Xanax and a couple beers before going on.
Yeah,
I'm sure he's like, oh, God.
A couple
PTSD's no joke.
A couple
I can't even
melatonin
imagine
gummies.
seeing that.
Oh, I couldn't either.
That is absolutely horrific.
Well, going back to that moment, his wife is a G. Like Cody said it, and I'm just going to reaffirm it. Like she jumps on the it's like she doesn't even hesitate. She jumps on the trunk of that car.
Dude, she's better than the Secret Service in that video.
Like, she does exactly what you would expect everybody in the car to do.
She checks on her husband, sees there's a hole in his head, jumps on the trunk, scoops his brains up, holds his head together, gets to the hospital. Her husband's declared dead, goes on a plane with her husband's blood and brains on the same coat she's wearing, and is there to
in
swear
front of the country to show
solidarity. Jackie Kennedy's a G, dude.
Yeah. No, I agree. She did not freak out like you would expect. I mean, I'm sure she was hysterical, but she wasn't like frozen in her
crazy.
hysterics. So we already talked about the Umbrella Man, of course. The Umbrella Man being some secret guy and he.
Yeah, real quick, if you didn't, we didn't really go over it. There's a guy standing. It's a hot summer day, and there's a guy standing there with an umbrella
in a full black suit.
So people zeroed in.
It was raining early.
Yeah, exactly. So people zeroed in on it to think, who is the Umbrella Man? Did he have something to do with it?
Wasn't a single other umbrella out, but this guy had his out.
They found him and interviewed him. It turned out
maybe he was pasty and he didn't like the sun.
He's a guy with an umbrella.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting about it is when the motorcade passes is when JFK gets shot. So if they use him as a marker. Yeah. And so there's a theory that there's a hidden gun inside of the umbrella, or the umbrella was a signal for them to start shooting or something like that.
Listen,
right?
welcome to InfoWars.
There
is an umbrella gun.
What was interesting is actually he actually went
like Alex Jones.
That's what I was saying.
He went and testified, the Umbrella Man. And because they found
it.
Yeah, it was in the
he was
in the committee.
He was in the committee
in the second investigation after the Geraldo Rivera show. They brought the Umbrella Man out, and
they made him bring his umbrella.
No, he brought. You can look up the footage. I've watched it.
That is fantastic.
He brought the same umbrella that he had that day,
when you push it up, it opens.
They inspected it.
He said the reason he had it is, I guess it was some protest. It's very vague as to what it's like the weakest protest of all time.
I did see that somebody had said something about there was some kind of weird protest with umbrellas.
It was a political statement. Apparently, no one else got the pamphlet. He was the only guy with the umbrella that day.
He's like the guy that shows up to the party thinking it's a costume party in a costume, and everybody's like, bro, no.
So that's the umbrella theory. I want to hear the alien theory.
Okay, hold on. We're gonna get there. The alien one's the end. That's the best
grand finale.
This one's crazy.
Hit me with.
And I don't really even understand. I tried to delve into it, but apparently there's people that believe that Woody Harrelson's dad was one of the shooters. Woody Harrelson's dad. Crazy thing is Woody Harrelson was later convicted of what?
You stop.
Who's Woody Harrelson?
Now you're just doing a bit. Now you're doing a bit.
We're done.
His movie.
I don't know.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
I don't even want to entertain this with a joke.
No, pause the bit. Do you really not know who Woody Harrelson is?
I really don't know who Woody Harrelson is.
You do if I showed you a picture.
Yeah, you'd know.
Just like
he's an actor.
Where is he from?
He's in White Man Can't Jump. He's in Kingpin. He's in Semi-Pro. He's in
that zombie movie too.
He's in Zombieland.
Zombieland.
Dude, I'm wrong. Isn't he Carnage?
Oh yeah, he's Carnage.
He's Carnage. Oh, he's Carnage. Oh, okay.
Carnage.
Yeah, in the newest Venom movie.
Oh, okay, fair.
That's the guy playing Carnage.
His dad killed JFK?
They believe.
They believe that Woody Harrelson's dad. By the way, he was later. His dad was later convicted of murdering a businessman in South Texas. So, not to say that has one thing to do with the other, but it does show that he has killer instinct.
Murdered other businessmen.
Yeah.
Some people think Alec Baldwin killed JFK, but the timeline doesn't
That's nuts.
add up for his
he doesn't.
timeline.
But he didn't have his finger on the trigger.
Well, he does have history with.
Well, he was handed the gun and told it was cold.
The theory is that's right. The theory is he was in the plaza in Dallas, and they go, "Hey, hold this rifle," and he shot JFK. And he goes, "The weapon was cold."
Oh, I was told it was cold.
Yeah,
it was handed to me.
Cold gun.
It was handed to me, but I didn't have my finger on the trigger.
I didn't have my finger on the trigger. I don't know how the president got it.
Yeah. So,
you know Alec Baldwin, right?
Yeah.
How many Baldwin brothers can you name?
One.
Yeah, okay.
That sounds about right.
That's
Alec. There's Steven. Right?
There he is, Steven Baldwin.
There it is.
This one, I guess, isn't super far-fetched because it kind of actually ties in with the belief that Oswald was a Soviet spy of some sort. Mm-hmm. But, there's this theories of a Soviet contracted killer who was a rogue CIA agent named Saul.
Okay.
So, yeah. Anyway.
That's one.
That's
interesting.
And before Aliens, the second the best one before aliens, the Illuminati did it. That apparently,
the Illuminati did everything.
Allegedly, yes, they did everything. Allegedly, JFK was restructuring the reserve, and that would in turn mess with the money and power of the Illuminati.
He's getting his hands on all those sweet Illuminati dollars, dude, and they're not having that.
So,
we didn't talk about I know. Are we about to end? Is that our last thing with aliens?
Well, we got the aliens.
Well, aliens,
but we can.
What about what happened to Jack Ruby after he shot Lee Harvey Oswald?
Yeah, let's close that loop. What happened there?
Oh yeah.
So he went insane.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yep. Nice.
He went insane a few days
and then
later.
he ends up dying of pulmonary. Got somewhere. Ruby. By the way, he had all those documented calls of the mine bosses. Let's not forget that. But Ruby died of pulmonary embolism.
The story goes that
he had a heart attack.
Now, I haven't.
Oh,
I know this off the top of my head, but I didn't research it. But I believe the story is Jack Ruby got put into jail. A CIA operative came and visited. Now, that part is true. The next part, I don't know. Cameras were not working at the time. But
there it goes.
No.
We've heard this before.
A CIA operative came and visited him. He was all by himself. And then after that, Jack Ruby went insane and then said he doesn't remember what happened. And that's all they could get out of
and
Jack
then
Ruby.
has a heart attack, which, by the way, supposedly he wasn't in bad health, but he has a pulmonary
So you know what I'm saying?
embolism.
So like, this is another rabbit hole of people who died.
His heart
who were
and then his
connected.
brain.
So that CIA operative you're talking about?
I know where you're going with this.
Yeah.
Go there.
You what?
I know where you're going with this.
Let's
Go
hear it.
there now. Take
Okay,
us there.
so that CIA operative is actually the head of a secret operation known as MK Ultra. Are you guys aware?
Yes.
Okay, you are aware.
I'm aware of MK Ultra. Yes.
Oh, okay. How did you
Mind control stuff, right?
Yeah. Mind control.
So the mind control guy visits Jack Ruby, and then he goes insane.
Oh. And an embolism is technically I believe it's like a clot going to the brain, kind of like a stroke, right? Because it's your pulmonary. And
Well, there you go. Okay.
I mean, I'd have to look it up to be sure that.
So I don't know how much you guys know about MK Ultra or about the things that happened during this whole operation that happened. And anyway, so before all this, basically what was going on is they were testing LSD essentially on a lot of random people, and they would gather them up into these areas, and they would basically give them either aerosol sprays or
And they had ties to the Manson family.
food. Ties to the Manson family.
That's another thing. Never mind.
Oh,
Keep
no.
going.
But then they would set them up, and they would just give them prostitutes or whatever, and just study their behaviors and stuff like that. They end up claiming that it was oh yeah, it didn't really lead to anything. It was a big waste of money. But there's other agents who, after leaving there, have testified and said no, they have figured out ways where they can manipulate and basically incept you to do something, be okay, here's what you need to do, and then they can go and they can visit you afterwards and take memories out of your brain afterwards without you even knowing or even being aware of what's going on. They had an instance where someone had shot somebody, and when the police had tackled them, he had no idea where he was or what he was doing, and he had no memory of doing anything before that. And when
and do you know what Jack Ruby's quote was? I don't remember where I was.
Yeah, exactly.
Or what I was doing.
Exactly.
Hey, so pulmonary embolism is actually a blood clot being released and then affecting the lungs. And I did a little weird Google. Don't freak out. I just was curious how a pulmonary embolism and injecting air in the veins can be tied together. And they said that it can. It's a small chance, but it can absolutely cause an air embolism to become a pulmonary.
Yeah. So it's an open syringe.
Yeah,
you just have with an open syringe.
Just slam him with a bunch of air right into his veins. Done.
Boom.
Gone.
Oof.
So we
right
closed
after going
that
insane.
loop. Boom. We know what happened. Jack Ruby was.
So there's secret, deep secret stuff going on, which leads us to the.
Yes, this is what I'm very excited.
So, Milton William Cooper, a former U.S. radio personality, author,
sounds insane,
and gun rights advocate, spread the news about Project Luna, which is a secret alien base on the dark side of the moon.
Do tell.
Furthermore, he promoted the conspiracy theory that JFK was assassinated by a gas pressure device that aliens supplied to the driver of the presidential limo because JFK was about to expose Washington alien collusion. So
they're colluding.
He found out about us colluding with alien species, and he was going to tell everybody.
And that's why they've never released the JFK with the document, because there's alien collusion. Possibly. I don't know.
So that's it. That's the big one.
That's it? That's the big one?
I mean, yeah. So the Project Luna, apparently there's a alien base on the other side of the moon that we can't see with our telescopes.
So the theory is, so who's this guy? What's the guy's name?
Milton William Cooper.
Incredible.
A former U.S. radio personality, author, and gun rights advocate.
Okay. So the big three.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
well, that's interesting. What could we even been colluding on?
Sounds legit. Sure. So we've had a lot of information. There's a million and more theories that are out there. They exist. You guys can Google it. We definitely, as DJ said, check out the video on YouTube. It is, again, warning, it is a little gruesome. If you've never seen it, that was the first time I'd seen it too.
Warning, you're seeing a guy get shot in the head.
Yes.
So
yeah.
It's not fun to
from
watch.
the front.
Do you guys know what humans and what's the difference between humans and bullets are?
Bro, I thought you were going to get somewhere weird with that.
Do we want to know?
Humans miss JFK. Another fun fact. Did you guys know what JFK's favorite coffee was?
What?
Stop it. I don't even know if we want to know.
An Americano with an extra shot.
Okay, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I like that.
Did you Google these jokes?
Oh yeah, I'm Googling
Okay.
more. I made the first couple,
It
but
sounds
now
like you're
I'm
reading
like,
off
hey,
a
we're
list
getting.
here.
I am now. Yeah. Did you know he was a fan of PDA? Because during the parade, he was all over his wife.
Oh, wow. That's a rough one. That one's brutal, dude.
Yeah, I mean, after my first couple hit, and those were ones just off the top of my head.
Listen.
I came up with a couple more. Sorry, that was just a really soft head joke there.
Cody, this is your fault. This is your fault because normally the crazy off the wall stuff comes out of you. Today you're a little more serious, bringing some knowledge. And here,
there's just a lot to talk about. You know, I could fill it with me.
Hey, I'm going to take an opportunity now to change roles and just go crazy.
He's memeing. I like the decaf with it.
Americano.
Americano, yeah.
I like that.
You guys are all out of control. Listen, I'm going to stand on more of the organized crime and the fact that JFK was, I mean, the arms race and all of that was going on. It's a big thing. It was big money makers, some of the richest people in the world, and JFK was really trying to shut it down. He believed in peace.
Well, there we go.
I think that there was some, whether it was our own government, whether it was some mob bosses, whether it was Russia, Cuba, any of these conspiring countries that wanted to take him out, because he was really trying to bring peace to the world. That was always his stance, always his belief was in human life. He was an advocate for life itself. So
we'll never know. He never got to his second term. He only got one shot.
Boom.
It just doesn't end.
It doesn't. That was off the top of my head.
So that's where
I'm gonna.
You already made that joke.
Like, why not? Right. But seriously,
he's like, I'm gonna bridge it again. I'm gonna bridge it again.
Okay, not going into like the weeds on it all. I think there's maybe something to be said that two things happen here, right? I believe there were two shooters based on what I've seen in the video. I don't have evidence. I've not read the documents. And there was even more that came out recently that I didn't even dig into because it was like 1,400 pages.
Yeah.
But it looks like two shots to me. So
agreed.
If I'm the government and keep the peace, right? Because panic's a real thing. The world feeling like we've been attacked, especially if you start going down rabbit holes and say it was done by a foreign country.
Yeah.
I want this to go away as fast as possible.
Yep.
Oh, I agree.
Do I believe that the government themselves didn't continue to pursue it? No. I would like to think that they would have some form of retaliation on the back end of this, but that not everybody in society needs to know that. Not everybody in our, I don't think that the normal citizens need to know all of the roots of where all this goes, because I think sometimes that could be a little bit too much behind the curtain. It's scary, right? But I don't know. I'm not much for the conspiracies, although the loophole where you have we're going to have him shot on TV, Oswald, and then that guy going crazy. Like, you just can't make this stuff up.
Yeah.
Right.
You can't, right? So that's where I start to feel like maybe there is some kind of criminal tie. Maybe it's not. Maybe he didn't have the ties that we thought he had, and this is strictly someone out there pissed off. I always thought that we would see another assassination over the last 10 years with some of the things that have happened in our government. Well, we haven't. There's always at least an attempt, right? Like,
we did. With Reagan.
Well, I'm talking about in the last 10 years.
Oh,
we've had a lot of crazy.
They just didn't
stuff
like his
happen.
acting.
Yeah, they're like, hey, screw this guy.
This guy from California.
You're like the worst actor ever, and then you go in and you become president, you're done. But money is a crazy thing. And again, that's why I don't think it's necessarily our government, but I definitely believe that JFK was doing some things that nobody had done. He was taking hard stances. I don't even think a president since him has even come close to how hard Kennedy stood on things. And he was going to possibly affect a whole lot of money not being made by some very, very powerful, wealthy people. So that's just, I don't necessarily believe that our government did it, but who knows?
Well, I mean, I say that to the ties that there were the Secret Service or the CIA was involved or any of those things. So
that whole, what was that thing called? The head of that secret CIA department?
Oh, MK Ultra.
MK Ultra. I mean, I didn't.
Well, the CIA is a shady business. That's another thing. But they get into some weird stuff. But I think, honestly, I lean more towards Andy, to where I don't aspire to the crazy conspiracy stuff. I think it's much more cut and dry, kind of dig into it.
But why?
Well, here, I'm going to say, I think it's more cut and dry that this was just a poorly investigated situation. The Secret Service was not, they clearly were making mistakes. I think the investigation, they made mistakes. I think whoever conspired to kill JFK had Lee Harvey Oswald shot. That screwed up the investigation. And so you've got a government who's got a dead president. They've got one shooter who has ties to Russia. Like Andy said, during the Cold War, they want to tie it up as quickly as they can. And that's what they did. And as more evidence comes out down the years, they got to cover their butts. And that's the stuff I think is true. As far as to the who and the what and the why, I don't know.
And the why is really...
The why is the biggest one.
It is. Because, you could talk about two shooters, but why were there two position shooters? Mm-hmm. Like one was doing cleanup for the other one to ensure that the job got done.
Mm-hmm. Right. And that shooter,
but the question is, never caught. So to you, DJ, what do you think? What is your top?
You think motive? What do you want to know?
Motive.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say because of Lee Harvey Oswald ties, Russia, I would have to assume it was something. I don't even know. It's so, because there's so many things. There's the mob ties. There's the Russian, the Cold War, the this, that. And I mean, you can leave a laundry list of reasons. But I would lean it somewhere there. I think it was something JFK had hard stance. See, you bring up a good point too, because that almost sways me. I would say Lee Harvey Oswald was somehow connected to Russia. And because you got the KGB stuff in there, that stuff can be proven. But the stuff you're saying is JFK took hard stances on things.
Right.
And when you're taking hard stances in government, you make a lot of enemies.
You're targeting, you put a big target on your back.
You're putting a target 100%. On your back. And are enemies colluding with each other? Are people, are there maybe players in our own government that are colluding with foreign actors? I have no clue. But I guess my gut, I would probably lean more towards the Russian angle because that's what can be proven.
Space race. Right? Oh. Sputnik was the first in space.
You're right.
We were the first one to say we were going to go to the moon. He dies in 63, 69. We accomplish it. I think if we're tying in Russians, it's possible they were trying to derail it.
Yeah, because to them, he was
the only one saying it.
That was putting, because remember, the thing about Russia, look at Putin right now. The thing about Russia is we are the most powerful, dominant country in the world. Like they've always had that stance. They've always had that. And Kennedy was trying to derail them.
I wish I had it. There was a quote from Lyndon B. Johnson talking to J. Edgar Hoover, and he said they were nervous about all this stuff coming out about Lee Harvey Oswald because they didn't want to lead. His quote was lead to a war that could cause 40 million deaths in, I think he said 5 minutes, referring to nuclear power.
War, yeah.
And so again, everyone right now is panicking. People have nuclear weapons for the first time. Russia's our enemy. And we don't know we're in the height of the war.
Yeah.
And they're nervous right now that this could lead to a war. It could lead to a lot of destruction. And so they're just trying to, in a sense, move past it.
Oh, I agree. It's quite possible that our government
I don't think they conspired to kill him, but definitely to move past it.
To clean it up.
To
protect the American people and the country as a whole. But yeah, Russia had different issues. I mean, the reality is even though JFK went on record to say he was going to make peace with Russia, remember, Russia's a very prideful country. Like they're just not going to up and be like, hey, we're not going to listen to this little guy from this little country. We got all this power. We got power. And they want to throw their power around. And so with the space race thing. So who knows? Oswald could have been a Russian spy.
There's
but again,
also
you have 2 shooters. We know that we don't know, but we firmly believe, looking at the video, that there's 2 shooters.
There's also the Cuba element. Pig.
Yeah.
Castro.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's all the connections there, and again, Kennedy was trying to make peace, and so so you're basically what I'm hearing, DJ, is your stance is that it's these guys were brought in.
I don't have a stance. I can't say that I have a confident stance as to the why. The thing I'm most confident in is that there was a second shooter, and that was downplayed and to some extent covered up, and I think intentionally, and I think there's ample evidence to support that.
I know you were saying that the investigations are weak. I think reality is that they just didn't to investigate it.
I think it's I think it's both.
Right. I think that they are now spending the time. I mean, how many presidents have they been pushed to release more documents? And I mean, Biden's the one that released the documents recently, but yeah, it's crazy. Is Cody going to say something? What's your stance, Cody? What are you thinking?
Oh, I don't think. I mean, you guys have said it, but I mean, I don't know why. I think that's the question that plagues us still to this day, is the why, because there's just, like you said, there's like 40 million different reasons why it could have been done.
Anyways, so JFK, couple shooters, possibly a third. The biggest question will always remain is why. There's a lot of theories out there. Check them out yourselves. Again, if you get a chance, YouTube the what's the actual video called again? It's a
Zapruder film.
Zapruder film.
Can you guys spell that for our fans? Maybe we'll throw.
I'll say this. There's a great.
I can throw a link. I just don't want it to play on Facebook. But I'll throw the link up. If
you really want a lot of this stuff, it's in a great documentary. It's on YouTube. You could type it in. It's by like ABC7 or something. They bring a lot of these people in. Just watch the doc yourself, and
then maybe I'll link that. I can link the doc and.
So you guys jump in. Andy will post it somewhere, but definitely check out the video. You see for yourselves. See what you guys think. Like 2 shots. It looks 2 different angles to me, and he's coming down a straight road. So one from behind, one from the front. Where did it come from? And when you guys get a chance, listen to this episode. Tell us maybe what you think. Send us a direct message and say, hey, I've been thinking about this for years, and I think it's aliens also, or Illuminati.
And if that's the case, get help.
Hey,
there's a lot of people.
We want to know.
Bigfoot.
We want to know. Man, we got to tie that one in somewhere. Dang, I knew we left one out. Anyways.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward. I don't know how you're going to get me out of this bunker.
DJ,
it's been a pleasure. A hard time shutting it down. So
no, it's fine.
Hey.
Let it roll.
It was a lot of fun. Anyways, we love you guys as always. Check it out. Share us on Facebook. Your favorite episode. Like and follow all of our pages. And DJ, we thank you. It was a great time.
Come on.
And as always, we love you, fam. We're out.
That was a mind-blowing episode.